Is it counting now? Your bird's back as well. All right. That's pretty quiet, isn't it? Click. Click. Hello everyone, this is Take from bigheadtaco.com, and I'm coming to you here from my home studio to do an unboxing video. Yes, the embargo date is supposed to be September 7th, but I don't know what the final date is, but it's a couple of weeks before that date, and I'm doing an unboxing of the brand new Fujifilm X-E3. Now this camera, so the new processor and sensor, the X-Trans 3 and the X Processor Pro first started on the X Pro 2, and then it's found its way into the X-T2, and then it found its way into the X100F and the X-T20, and the last of the legacy bodies is the X-E series, right? So the original X-E1, X-E2, X-E2S, which was an odd upgrade. And so a lot of people who like that rangefinder format has been waiting for the X-E3, and same with me. And so Fujifilm, just one second here, Fujifilm sent me a production ready X-E3. So this, I don't think this is pre-production. We'll find out as we open it up, but this is the kit that comes with the XF18-55. It's one of the best kit lenses out there on the market. It's a fantastic lens. So this is a great kit that is available, although there are going to be body only and other lens kits available at launch, and so we'll talk about that a little bit later, but let's start the unboxing. I'm pretty excited because one of the things that people are probably wondering is, will it have an articulating screen? Will it have touchscreen? Will it have a joystick? Will this have 4K video? We'll see what they did. I'm excited to see. I don't know yet what's in the box. I was sent a PDF sheet with all the specs of this, but I didn't want to look at it until I actually opened this up, so real time we can be surprised together. So let's start the unboxing now. Alright guys, here is the box, the unboxing again of the X-E3, but this is the kit that comes with the XF18-55, F28 to F4, RLMOIS. And so let's start the unboxing. So let's just see. One of the things that happens when I do, I mean, this is probably production ready. It looks production ready. Is that they don't give me the manual because there's so much information in there. I get this a couple of weeks before the actual release date, and so they just don't want this information out early. So here is where you would have the instruction manual, and then you have all this other you know, warranty, caution, probably about the lithium ion battery, as well as some tells you all the different service centers around the world. So anyways, that's where the manual should be, but is not. We have the camera body here, so I'll just leave that aside for a second. And in here, looks like this is the lens. And then finally, no, that's kind of odd. Thought it was like a box on its own, but it's all kind of thrown in like this. So here are all the different accessories. So let's just move all this out of the way. So this is just the empty box here, and I'm gonna move this aside. And yeah, let's just start with the standard strap. Not leather. It's like the leather-like material. It is probably one of the better straps that you get out there that's included. I find that the Canons and stuff are a little bit flashy, like they're blue and red, and it just screams Canon, and it seems like a bit of an inferiority complex. This is black, all black, you know, nice and stealth, except that little bit of Fujifilm there. Works decent enough, but I don't like these through straps. I actually like the ring style, which you will have to attach the little triangular rings that are in here. And in here you get the little, your lug protectors. You get this little plastic clip that helps you put the little triangular rings on. But I'm gonna be using my own stuff, so I'm just gonna leave this aside. And you have the standard charger and the really long cable, which I've been telling Fuji, you should get the little stubby. You can fit on here. I have been told that you can buy the stubbies from Amazon, and basically it's like the iPads and the older MacBook Pros with the brick. They have a little tiny stubby, so you can plug it straight into the wall without having this long extension cord. So I still hope Fujifilm, I mean, it'll cost them less money anyways, but this is a standard charger here. Let's just open the, you know what, forget the lens, because a lot of you guys already know about the lens, so we'll leave the lens aside. All right, now that we're refocused, this is the X-E3 body. Here is the external flash. There is gonna be no built-in pop-up flash. I've never really used these because I like to carry around a little compact flash myself anyways, but it's there if you need it. And let's just pull this out here. It looks like it has not been opened, but the fact that the battery wasn't in there, someone must have opened it, but this does definitely look production. Wow, it's closed pretty darn good here. So here we go. Let's see, wow. Can you guys see something glaringly missing from the X-E3 body? There's no little four-way controller with the menu reset in the middle. That is, wow, that's quite a different design philosophy. I mean, I think pretty much almost every digital camera that I know of, this is the X-T20, has this little four-way controller. It's kind of how we navigate through. So here's the X-T20 and here's the X-E3 next to each other, approximately the same size, minus the little hump here for the EVF. But wow, that's quite a bit of a difference there. And the first thing I notice, other than the missing four-way controller, is that they have this little thumb rest here with the autofocus lock and the Q button right up here. I don't mind that the Q button's here. You guys know how I feel about the AFL button being there, much like the X Pro 2. I'm sure within the menus we can swap these with the AEL, the auto exposure lock, because I think most of us will autofocus lock or back focus using these buttons. So you could probably switch this. I think this should be switched. So I don't like the positioning of that already, but wow, that is different. Another thing I noticed is this has a joystick. Like the X Pro 2, like the X-T2 and the X100F, which the X-T20 does not have because it has the touch screen. And so this is the way that they want you to navigate. Other differences I'm noticing is because there is no center menu OK button, there is a menu OK button there. So you'll just have to remember that it's below the joystick. And I think by nature, we're gonna look for that OK button right there. It's gonna be a natural thing. So my guess is we're gonna be navigating through the menus using this joystick, and then hitting this is okay. So I don't think it's something that we can't get used to, but it is unusual to not have that. But it does make the back look slicker. No articulating screen, as many of us probably would have guessed coming from the X-E3. And now just looking here at the top panel, let's look here again. There is no pop-up flash or built-in flash. You're gonna have to put this on here. Shutter speeds are similar. Same sensor, same processor between these two cameras. So obviously we're gonna be getting, it'll have this the same top shutter speed, electronic shutter going up to 1/32,000th of a second, mechanical to 1/4000th. Let me see here. It has the same ±3 with the C mode for exposure compensation, ±5. Has the function button there, threaded shutter release, which I'm glad to see. It has this auto feature, which was kind of a signature of the X-T10 and the X-T20, and now they put it into the X-E3. And so I think that is a decent feature for those that are who tend to hand this over, let's just say, as I mentioned in the past, to a waiter or someone that's taking a picture for you that isn't acquainted with the camera, and you're deep in the menus, right? So you're manually setting the shutter speed, you're manually setting the exposure, the aperture, you manually set the ISO, and then you just want to hand it to someone, right? So you put it into auto mode and it pretty much does everything for you. Looking over here at the front, so you do have the front and rear dial, just like the X-T20. You have, this is pretty much the same, the controlling of the autofocus, manual, continuous, and single. And then you just have the lens release, and that's pretty much it in the front. Looking at the sides, it looks like it's pretty much the same as the X-E2 and also the X-T20, where you have the USB, the HDMI, and that small 2.5 millimeter microphone input jack, which I really think, guys, let's go 3.5 millimeter if you can. And so this is probably going to be USB 2.0. It's not going to be 3.0, but you know, it's good enough, right? It's good enough. What do you expect for, I mean, this is not the X Pro 2 or the X-T2. Looking at the bottom here, very similar to the X-T20. It has a single slot for the battery and the memory card. And as I mentioned, the battery is already inserted for me. So, and it is actually, it's funny, it is using the higher end, the MPW126S. So it has the shielding for built-up heat, which might mean something. It might mean that this does 4K video, but we'll see about that. We will see. I'm just looking at the bottom here. I don't know if there's going to be a possible, see that little hole there? That is where probably the vertical control grip will hinge on one side, and they have these little tabs on this side. I don't see anything on this side. Maybe there is a possible little metal control, just like a little grip for this, but we'll see what happens. But that's sort of my visual look at the X-E3 so far. So I'm gonna just quickly unbox the lens. It's not gonna be a big deal, guys, just because there's, you know, this is a kit lens. I don't think anyone's gonna get excited looking at the unboxing of the kit lens, but here it is here. You get the standard plastic flower shaped lens hood, and this is it's a beautiful lens. I really do like the 18-55. I actually enjoy using this for video, actually. It's a really good video lens because it is optically image stabilized, and it has the major, you know, think about the great primes within the Fujifilm lineup from 16. So this doesn't do 16, but there's an 18 prime, there's a 23 prime, there's a 27 pancake prime, there's a 35 prime, and then there's a 50 prime, which is this one here. And there's a 55 or 56 prime. So it has the major prime focal lengths in here with the optical image stabilization, which none of the primes here have in this focal range. Although, albeit it is slower, it's f2.8 to f4. But this is a fantastic lens. Let's pop it on to the body here. So there you go. So handsome looking camera here, beautiful, well balanced. So this is what this looks like. I'm just a little bit wary of the no 4-way, but I'm not gonna judge it until I actually shoot with it. I think most of us are just used to seeing that 4-way controller. That's just how we navigate through a camera. But considering that you have a joystick, considering you have your manual shutter control, your aperture ring here on the lens, and you have the front and rear dial, it's not like you're lacking any navigational features to find your way through it. But let's just see how it works in person. So I'm gonna now turn the camera on, and we're gonna dig into the menu system. Something I noticed as soon as I turn this camera on, so here I'm turning it on. So I already did set the date and everything. The first thing I noticed, do you guys see something unusual about the screen? It actually has, just like on the X-T20, this actually has a touch screen. You can turn it on, you could turn it off. So shot mode, which means basically whatever you point at, it will take a picture of, right? It just did it up against this blank, this table here. There's nothing for it to shoot, but here, let's just put it to AF mode, which means it will pick the AF points for you as you press it. And so not only does the X-E3, not only does it have touch, a 4-way joystick, it also has a touch screen, which something that not even the X-T2 has, but the GFX does have that feature. So I'm actually kind of blown away. This does not have a traditional 4-way menu controller here with the standard menu OK button in the middle, but it does have a joystick and for you to navigate. So as you can see, I'll go into menu mode. Here we go. So I'm in menu mode. You can kind of navigate your way through here. Can you see that? Quite easily. And for instance, if I wanted to format the card, right? So I would go right and format, And instead of pressing the menu OK button, all you have to do is press this down on the joystick as another way of doing that. So let's just pick another feature here. Let's just say here, sound setting, AF beep, I want it off. I press it, there you go, it's set. Now there is no beep. For self timer, actually I don't mind, but operational volume, I want it off. So now it's turned off. Shutter volume turned off. Shutter sound, well, that's turned off because everything else is turned off. And you can really navigate your way quite easily through the menus by just using this four-way controller. And so, you know, so far I don't miss the the main controller here. It actually feels quite intuitive, and because this is touch screen, I had hoped that there would be touch menu, but still, if it is, I can't access it. So let's just see your screen setup. Let's just see, this all looks normal. LCD brightness, preview, picture preview, frame guide, focus scale. I actually like feet. I know I am Canadian, I should be used to meters by now. I like the distance in both manual focus and autofocus. Let's just see here what kind of screen mode there is for touch. So here's touch screen mode. So it does allow you to access it, framing outline, I don't mind that. So let's just back out again. Yeah, so it's funny, this four-way joystick has basically taken over. It has taken over the standard four-way control, so that's pretty good. I'm going to go into the shooting menus now, but it's hard for me to show you like this because again, this lens is just straight down against this table. So if I go into shooting mode, well, let's just go into it now. It's just, you know, it's going to be a little bit hard to see. Oh, see, look at that. So I swipe up. So one of the things I was kind of guessing was just like the GFX, there's extra features as you swipe up. So it looks like you get access to certain features. Let me just, you guys saw that, right? I swiped up and something came up. And maybe, I'm gonna have to play with this a little bit more. Yeah, so you swipe up and you get into autofocus mode. I don't know what I just did there. Oh, I swiped down and it got ISO, see that? And I actually, wow, look at that. You can actually, pick your ISO. So there must be some kind of, and now there's auto white balance. So it looks like, so on this, you know, these four are customized buttons, right? You can use these four to customize certain features. I have a feeling that swiping in from the left or right does the same thing. You're accessing those four. So let's just see. Let's go back into the menus. Oh, it'll be in the custom here, no, button dial settings. FN settings, probably here. So you have the standard, the FN button at the top, which is normal. And then you have, see, look at that. Can you guys see that? It actually tells me for swipe up, that means AF. For swipe left is film simulation. Swipe right is white balance. And swipe down is ISO. So look at that. They've integrated the touch screen to access 4 FN buttons that you don't actually see. That's pretty cool. I don't know of any other brand who's done that. And here is the AEL, AFL as mentioning. I actually like this as the autofocus lock only, that button there. And I'll swap that for the AFL, which I'll move to AEL only, so auto exposure lock. And then this is the rear dial for punch in for zoom, which I think is pretty good. And then back to that. So, wow, so look at that. You can actually swipe. So let's go back into the swipe mode again. So swipe down is for ISO. And you can actually do that, or you can use the joystick if you want. You know, sometimes to me it feels more accurate to use a joystick and then press in, swipe. You know, what you're seeing here is blanking out because of the eye going to the EVF mode. So you just swipe left, you have your white balance, right? You swipe, swipe right, left for your film simulation, and then you swipe, pick Velvia, and then you swipe up for your AF mode. But all that is customizable, which is pretty darn sweet. So I'm pretty excited. That's pretty innovative touch implementation. Although again, Fujifilm, I wish in this menu mode, you can scroll through. I still think you guys should add that. Canon has a beautiful implementation of going through the menus by just touching, and I think Fujifilm should do that. I think all manufacturers should actually do that. That really is the future of touchscreen, because you know, even with our smartphones, we're used to the touch feature. This touch is, and being able to do touch and joystick and dial control, having the option of either or, I think is fantastic. There's my iPhone there. So yeah, so let's get back to seeing my face, and we'll finish off this first impressions. All right, so we're finished looking through the menus. Again, I'm pretty excited. I was first of all confused, as I mentioned. I have both the X-T20 and the X-E3 here, which is probably the two cameras that most people will be comparing it to. The first thing, as I mentioned, is unusual. There's no four-way controller, but they've integrated it into the touchscreen, which is quite unique. I'm not aware of any other brand that has done it in terms of like getting rid of that so that they can implement into the touchscreen. And just for fun, I thought I would try it with my eye to the screen. You can use, of course, the joystick, which works with the LCD screen and the EVF, but as well, you can control the focus points by the first camera that I came across that had that feature was the Canon EOS M5, and I had said, Fuji, can you do it? Looks like Fuji was listening to me, so thank you, engineers back in Japan that most likely saw my video on my channel. But as well, remember because there's no forward controller, you're losing those 4 custom function buttons. So if you put your eye to the EVF and you swipe left, I see in the screen here, I get the film simulations. I swipe right and I get my white balance. I swipe down to get my ISO. Not as easy as here. Swipe down. There you go. There's my ISO. I'm gonna have to get used to this, figure out what portion, what quadrant of the screen that you have to do it. And so being able to implement the forward controller on the LCD screen, but as well when you're looking through the EVF, you can also access those controls as well. I think that's pretty darn sweet. I still would probably prefer a 4-way, but we'll see in practice. And one of the reasons why is because if you are shooting in the cold or in the rain, then the touch won't work as well. But in terms of picking the focus points and navigating through the menus, the joystick works anyways, and so you're not losing that functionality. Another thing that I noticed while digging through the menus, something quite unusual, and it's something I was thinking about, is how they would implement video in the X-E3, and it's kind of funny, but you actually get 4K. You get 4K on the X-E3. The X Pro 2 doesn't even have 4K video. And so I have a feeling it'll be the same as the X-T20 line skipping, but I'll have to talk to Fujifilm and find out for sure. So this has 4K video. X-T20 also has 4K video. And so it's pretty darn close. Like, I thought it'd be just a matter of, you know, when the X-T10 came out, basically the difference was between the X-T10 and the X-E2 was, you know, articulating screen, you know, a few more dials, more of an X-T1 DSLR kind of a setup versus a rangefinder X Pro 2 setup. But this has a few tricks up its sleeve. Like, for instance, this does not have a joystick, right? This one does. And for those of you that have gotten used to the joystick on the X-T2, the X Pro 2, and the X100F, well, the X-E3 has it, the X-T20 does not. And it's like, oh, well, this has an articulating screen. This does not, but this has a better implementation of touchscreen, although this is just a firmware update away from getting some of the implementation of this as well, right? But no upgrade for the joystick on here. So I have a PDF sheet going through the basic specs. I was told by Fujifilm this is not final, but this will give you kind of an idea of the pricing. At launch, Canadian with the kit lens, the kit that I opened up, the XF 1855, is going to be 1650 Canadian. Body only is going to be 1150 Canadian. And as I mentioned, it is possible to get the X-E3 with the XF23 lens, which is actually a really great combo if you are kind of a prime shooter. And this kind of has a rangefinder-esque feel because of that EVF on the far left, a smooth top panel like this. So with the 23 on this is a great kit, and that'll be $1450, which is a lot cheaper than with this zoom lens. And so if you don't want the zoom, then get the XF23 if you don't already own that lens, if you own other Fujifilm ILC camera bodies. And so let's go through here the specs. So I have the specs here in front of me, no need for me to guess anymore. And so as I mentioned, it has that same 24.3 megapixel APS-C X-Trans CMOS 3 sensor with the X Processor Pro. It has a new touch feature, swiping left, right, up and down to choose your FN custom function buttons. And in the mentions here, you could do so while looking through the viewfinder, which is fantastic. It mentions Bluetooth version 4.0 for faster pairing with Wi-Fi and automatically transferring images in playback mode. I can't remember what version of Bluetooth is in this one. I'll have to put in a little title to see if it's the same. And big surprise, Ultra HD 4K at 29.97 frames per second video. So this has 4K, amazingly. New autofocus algorithms and AF lever for easy control of 325 focus points, which is fantastic. Let me see here. Creative filters, who cares? Focus peaking, we knew this would have all that stuff. Interval timer, nothing special there. 14-bit RAW, lossless compression, in-cam processing. There is no uncompressed. You don't know. You do have a choice of uncompressed or lossless compressed. So that's fantastic. If you want that lossless, huge files, but if that's what you want, that's what you'll get. Ultrasonic vibration sensor cleaning. And so there's all this pricing here. I'm not going to go through all the pricing, but there is going to be a black version, a silver version, black with the 1855 kit lens. You have the silver with the same kit lens, and then you have the black with the 23 f2 lens, which is this lens here, and then you have the silver with the 23 f2 lens. And so that's what you're going to get at launch. In terms of accessories, I don't have pictures here, but it shows bottom leather case, so it must be like a half case, which will look pretty sexy, I'm sure, especially if it comes in a dark brown. Let me see here. Battery, I guess that's an accessory. Remote release, which nobody cares about because you have the app to do that. Metal hand grip, MHG-XE3. So it looks like there's gonna be a special grip just for the X-E3. Charger, flashes, stereo microphone. Yeah, so basically it's the half case and the metal grip, which is what people would probably be looking at to add to this to make it more unique. And so that was a fun unboxing and a quick comparison between the new Fujifilm X-E3 and the still new-ish Fujifilm X-T20. Quite a few surprises there. And my first impressions before actually shooting with the cameras, I pretty much already know how the images will look like because it's the same sensor, same processor that's in the X-T20 and the X100F and the X-T2 and the X Pro 2 with slight tweak differences. In terms of looking at the autofocus mode, it has that function that you can slightly adjust the way that the continuous autofocus works on the X-E3, just like on the X-T20, although not as customizable as the X-T2. It did have one menu feature that was not in the X-T20, but again, I think it is upgradable in firmware, which is there is a mode called Store AF mode by orientation, and so you can't see that, but that is there. So I'm assuming it means when you're shooting vertically, there are times where you want a certain style of autofocus continuous tracking, and you can actually store that via orientation on or off. And so the X-T20 does not have it. It probably will get it in upgrade, in a firmware update. But I'm sure there's other things that as I dig through, I'll find other small differences between the firmware of the X-T20 and the X-E3. But as well, both of these can do 4K video. Ergonomically speaking, as I mentioned before, it is yet to be seen how it's going to work where you don't have that standard 4-way controller. What I did notice though is that because you were heavily if you're going to be using the joystick as well, using the EVF, so while you're shooting, you can still use the touch features. On the X-T20, they can implement that if they wanted to, but the problem is, look where your eye is. Your eye is dead center, and it's really hard to access the screen when your eye is in the middle, where this thing is as far left as possible. So especially if you're right eye dominant and you're shooting like this, that gives you a lot of screen room that you can play with. I'm left eye dominant, so my face still gets in the way. But you know, if I was forced to, I guess, I really do struggle to look through my right eye. I have to close my left eye to do so. But now I have access to the entire screen with my right hand. And I also noticed, because that is not there, you can even notice the difference here, guys. Look where the screen ends here on the both the X-T20 and the X-E3, and you can see there's actually more thumb room on the X-E3. And this is something I always talk about. My Ricoh GR has a lot of thumb room for such a small point and shoot, often more space than interchangeable lens cameras. The X-E3 actually surprisingly has a lot of thumb room, and having a joystick, but as well having touch screen with this much room on the right hand side, I think that in certain shooting situations and for certain types of shooters, this makes more sense. You do lose this top dial. Now, on the X-T20 and the X-T2, you do have your drive mode as a dedicated dial, which for those of you that are switching between shooting continuous high, continuous low, shooting single, shooting video, it's nice to have a physical dial that you can just quickly dial in your drive mode. Like the X Pro 2, you actually have to press the drive button, and what that does, for me at least anyways, is that if you are in a unique drive mode, so let's just say you are in let's just say you're in auto exposure bracket, or you're in video mode, and then you forget you're in that mode, and then you're wondering why you can't shoot single, or you're wondering why you can't do certain things. It's often because you're in a drive mode. Where here, physically, you can just look down and go like, oh, I'm in video, and then you switch back to single shooting mode. This one is a little bit buried, but you know, you just learn to live with it. I think a lot of it has to do with this aesthetic, this clean top plate that you get on the X Pro 2, and you get now on the X-E3. You do lose the pop-up flash that you get on the X-T20 here. This one you need to use the accessory flash, which it kind of ruins the whole aesthetic of this after, but for me it doesn't matter because I don't use the built-in flash. I usually carry an accessory flash with me anyways. And so that's kind of my initial overall feel. The touchscreen implementation of the forward controller, swiping left and right, we will see how well that actually works in the field. If it ends up frustrating me, or if it ends up being a great feature. EVF, it looks identical to the X-T20 in terms of magnification and size. It looks the same, and so it probably is the same. One last thing is probably what the biggest thing between the X-E series and the X-T series is that this does not have an articulating screen. Those you like to shoot low, like to shoot up high and articulate down, or even shooting overhead with the articulating screen back down, you just can't do that with this style of camera. And so that's my first impressions without shooting with it. I'm gonna do another quick video with the pictures. Hopefully I'll get it done in time, of my shooting experience with the X-E3, and I'm really going to be testing it against the X-T20 on the streets. But so far I am pretty impressed that they have distinguished these two cameras. They've given this quite a bit of a different personality from the X-T20, so that will make it a harder decision for you guys, you Fujifilm camera lovers, to decide if you should upgrade your X-E2 to the X-E3 or get the X-T20, or if you already bought the X-T20, trade it in and get yourself an X-E3. But the biggest surprise for me was the lack of the forward controller and having a 4K and having touchscreen and having 4K video. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you Fujifilm Canada. Thank you Helen for sending me a pre-production, although I think this is a production model for me to unbox and give a first impressions. And look for more videos. Go samurai on the like button, guys, and subscribe and tell your friends. Until then, well, not until then, until next time, we'll talk to you soon. Happy shooting.